Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Artsbeat TV and radio here on Westfield Community Programming's Channel 15, 89.5 FM WSKB, and our media partners at Agawam Media and Southwick Community Programming. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach, and we've got a great program for you today. One of the faces that you're seeing on the screen is quite familiar, and that's Eric Ort, who has been on this program multiple times. He had been at TheaterWorks in Hartford, and he recently joined RealArtWays in Hartford as the Capital Campaign Director, and he's brought along with him Will K. Wilkins, who has served as RealArtWays Executive Director since 1990. For those of you that haven't been to RealArtWays in Hartford, it's a unique cultural center, one that I think would be the envy of any of our communities because it features artists, galleries, exhibitions, music of all genres, and film all under one roof. And RealArtWays in Hartford is a great destination for people that want to go see what's current, what's happening, and what's innovative. So Eric and Will, welcome to Artsbeat.
Thanks, Mark.
Great to be
Pleasure
here.
to be here.
So Eric, before we chat with Will a little bit, what made you go to RealArtWays after this long period of time you spent at TheaterWorks?
So I love the theater, and it really is in many ways my first love among the arts. But I was really looking for a way to look at the arts through a broader lens that included community as well. And so RealArtWays was an immediately attractive place to invest my time and energy because of exactly what you just cited, the fact that it is visual arts, it's performing arts, it's music, film, and has a really deep commitment to education and learning and the community.
Now, Will, when you got to RealArtWays, it was already established, but you've been there for decades. How has it changed since you arrived on the scene, and how has the greater Hartford arts community changed since you took the helm of RealArtWays?
Well, hi, Mark. It's great to be here. Thanks for that. And I'm happy to tell people about RealArtWays. Over the 3 decades that I've been there, it's changed a lot. And in part, we've just become much more popular, much more known. We've always focused on what's innovative, but I think, become more accessible to people at the same time. With our movie theater, we're showing films that people really appreciate, and oftentimes it might be the one of the few places in the region besides the Amherst Cinema where you can see some of the films that we show. We've really put down roots in our immediate neighborhood of Parkville and in the broader Hartford community, and become a place where people from a lot of different backgrounds feel comfortable coming, and that's important to us. So, we've become more, I think, entrepreneurial. We've diversified our income. I think our programming has become, in some ways, more accessible, although sometimes there's a level of obscurity to some of our work that we don't want to let go of. We want to keep, and I think that we could do a better job of marketing and making sure people are aware of it. That's something that's changed dramatically. The decline of newspapers. Certainly here in Hartford, we no longer have an alternative weekly, haven't had that for several years. So that question of how do we alert people to what we're doing, how do we get out to people, is kind of an ongoing challenge for us. But RealArtWays is growing, we're expanding, and we're here for the long term, and happy to be here with you.
Do you want to give us a little snapshot of some of the things that are going on from mid-October through mid-November, just so people can have an idea of the diversity of what you're programming?
Well, there's a few different ways people can connect in. One of the nicest ways is on the third Thursday of every month, we have a social event. We call it the Creative Cocktail Hour. I mean, it's not about cocktails, but it is about creativity. and it's an opportunity for people to come by 6 to 10 p.m. and we'll have live music. We have exhibitions. Artists are here. It's a great mix of creative people. So if you're just wondering, what is this place? Can I just come by? Creative Cocktail Hour, third Thursday of every month is a great way to do that. We also have our movies. Right now, since COVID, we're not open on Monday and Tuesday, but we're open Wednesday through Sunday. And we're showing, interesting movies. The David Bowie movie is about to come here. But our website, RealArtWays.org, has all of the movies on it. We have 4 exhibitions up right now, including an exhibition by Howard El Yasmin, which the raw material for the exhibition is made up of thousands of banana peels, which he has baked and processed, and they're hanging from our ceiling and they're attached to artworks on the wall. And it creates a remarkably evocative experience out of those simple materials. So you can always come. Our galleries are free for people to come. They can check out our website, sign up for our e-news. And sometimes there's social events, concerts. We do a series of improvisational music concerts that are organized and produced by the great guitarist Joe Morris, multi-instrumentalist actually. And Joe is, just put together some remarkable people, including we also have a concert with Terry Janour, who's from the Valley. Has a long career at UMass with the Augusta Savage Gallery, and she's a very talented musician. So we have music, we have social events, we have movies, and we have the visual art. So there's all kinds of things for people to do.
And I think the thing that makes it unique is it's all under one roof. I mean, we have various components of that in the Valley, but you have to drive. You want the movies, you go to one place. You want
Sure.
the jazz, you go to another place. You want the visual arts, you go to another place, but you have it under one roof. How long did it take you at Real Artways before the larger arts community and the corporate community that sponsors a lot of these things, before you were on their radar and before they realized what an important resource you are to Greater Hartford?
Yeah, I think that was a challenge for Real Artways in its early years. In the mid '70s, when Real Artways started, Hartford was a thriving place in terms of the arts. There were several smaller arts organizations that were up and running, and I remember there was a delegation of people who came from Northampton to Hartford to say, "How does Hartford do this? How are you activating your downtown? How have you been so successful at that?" And again, that was back in the '70s. Now, Northampton has some wonderful things. I'm at Northampton all the time, but we had just this last week when we were having our monthly third Thursday social event. There was a gentleman there from Northampton, and he was saying to me, "Oh, I wish that Northampton had something like this." And the truth is, you could put Real Artways down in any city in the world, and people would be happy to have it. One of the things that's interesting about us is the level of excellence that we have in the various art forms. And Mark, here's a little tidbit which I think is kind of illustrative of that fact. The MacArthur Genius Grants are a kind of well-known award that goes out to people in creative fields, both arts and sciences. And I think they give about 20 of them away every year, and they've been doing that since the '80s. But Real Artways has worked with and presented the work of more MacArthur Genius Grant winners than any other arts organization of any size in America. We have worked with in visual arts, in music, in literary, and in performance, 40 MacArthur Genius Grant awardees that we brought here. And typically, they've come here before they got an award. An example of that would be Mel Chin, who recently got one. Mel's a wonderful visual artist who we did a major project with 30 years ago. Julie Alt from an artist collaborative called Group Material also won one. And then Pepone Osorio, a lot of people who we've commissioned and produced dozens of public art projects throughout Hartford, working with some of the best artists of our time. But oftentimes, one of our challenges is, we're working with artists before they become well known. And I think it's also true in terms of visual art. People don't really know visual artists. It's not part of the broader cultural discussion, particularly. They might know one or two, Banksy, maybe they've heard of, but there's not like a bigger sense of who are the outstanding visual artists of our time. And I think you can find many of them at RealArtWays, as well as some brilliant musicians. And that MacArthur Genius is just kind of like a little hook to give you a sense of the level of excellence that goes on here.
So, Will, how did you get involved in the arts initially, and what brought you to RealArtWays?
Well, I was living in New York City before I came here. I'd lived in New York for 13 years, and I was involved in the arts in various ways there, arts and also kind of I was really interested in politics. I was very concerned about the United States involvement in Central America, and was an activist in opposition to our government's policies at that point. And I have my mom took me when I was a kid. She took me to the Worcester Art Museum. That was my first exposure to art museums, and I loved it as a kid. I loved just being able to go around and just look at stuff, I lived in Brattleboro, Vermont for a while. I was involved in community theater, some really outstanding efforts of community theater, that were produced, and really outstanding things. So I've had an interest in music. I can very readily pick up musical instruments and play surprisingly well for like the first hour, and then never progress past that point. So I have an immediate deafness which doesn't doesn't persist through time. I think but I think I have an ear based on listening and participating and being involved. And I think one of the things that's true about music and about visual art, it's something that as human beings, that impulse to create and that impulse to appreciate creativity is something that we all share, and that's across lines of color and across lines of class. And the idea of like learning from people based on what they create, I think is something that it's a big part of commercial culture, but I think there's a whole other element that's just human nature. That is, it's been part of my life the whole time. And we do programs. We're in a neighborhood in Hartford, and we do programs in the neighborhood with kids and with adults in the neighborhood. We work with the senior center. But one of the ways I talk about it, as I say, we're in a neighborhood, but we're not a quote unquote neighborhood arts organization. We're a national arts organization with an international perspective. So we're not a neighborhood arts organization, but we are a good neighbor. And so we really reach out to the people that are around us and connect in various ways, and not just about art and creativity, but just about life.
Okay, we're going to take a break in just a moment to acknowledge the underwriters that make Artsbeat possible. But how can people find out about RealArtWays or get involved in RealArtWays or volunteer or contribute? And Eric, you can crunch the numbers on that.
Absolutely. So the two best ways are frequently visit our website, which is realartways.org. And when you're there, you can sign up for our newsletter, which will give you a weekly update on what's going on and what's coming up.
And I recently, Eric, you and I had lunch earlier in the summer, and I got on your mailing list, and I get there's so much stuff going on. I get a weekly e-blast, but also you can find RealArtWays on your social media networks and channels. So we're going to take a break. We'll be back to talk more with Will K. Wilkins and Eric Ort from RealArtWays in Hartford. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. I'm Mark Auerbach. Don't go away.
Underwriting for Community Radio on WSKB is brought to you in part by Rockies. Over 30 convenient locations throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Florida. One of the nation's largest ACE dealers. Expertise and great product selection in paint, hardware, lawn and garden. That's Rockies. Rock solid service since 1926. On the web at rockies.com.
Underwriting for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield, serving the youth of the Whip City and surrounding communities since 1969. For more information on the Great Futures Club for ages 3 to 5, happening weekdays, and the Club Teen Center for ages 11 and older, weekdays from 6:30 till 8 p.m., go online at bcgwestfield.org. or visit the club at 28 West Silver Street. The Boys and Girls Club of Greater Westfield. Great futures start here. Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 at 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. If you missed a part of today's programming or you want to watch it again or share it with friends, it's archived on YouTube at WSKB Community Radio's YouTube page. We're chatting with Will K. Wilkins, who has been the director of RealArtWays in Hartford since 1990, and Eric Ort, who's joined his team after having a great career at TheaterWorks Hartford. And so much is going on at RealArtWays. And Will, you have so many ties here to the Valley. You graduated from University of Massachusetts, but you've also worked and consulted with arts organizations all over the country. And your resume is a list of projects that you've done everywhere. How does what RealArtWays does compare to other cities like in Western Massachusetts or around?
Well, I think Western Mass is just a great, a place where all kinds of wonderful arts organizations, but especially if you include the Berkshires in, not just the Valley, but Mass MoCA does great stuff. The Williams College Art Museum, obviously the Clark is just a wonderful place to visit, and Jacob's Pillow and Tanglewood and everything. But then just Northampton as a place is a wonderful place to visit. The Amherst Cinema is fantastic. Smith College has just so much that's going on. We would love to have more, make more inroads in terms of people's awareness in the Valley. Certainly there are people who know us there, but because indeed RealArtWays is unique. There is not a place like RealArtWays in any of the wonderful artistic venues that exist in the Valley. There's not some place that's like RealArtWays. And that's true, if you go to Boston or go to Chicago, to find a place where, they're showing, art house cinema and having, exquisite, superb contemporary art exhibitions, doing innovative music. It's rare to find that all in one place. And that's what RealArtWays has been from its beginning. It was founded by artists. And it always has had art, known as an artist space or an alternative space, and it's always had the creation of new work, new ideas, with a focus on the artist, has been at the center of its work since it was created in 1975. So that, I think there's a difference sometimes between a museum, which oftentimes they have a collection, which it's their duty to take care of, and they become very focused on the objects, and one of the ways that I think the difference between RealArtWays and a museum is that RealArtWays doesn't have a collection. So the way I say it is, we're not about the objects, but we're about the people. We're about the artists, and we're about the community and the audience that comes together around that. And so that's one of the differences. I think also because we're a nonprofit organization, we do things that maybe are off the beaten track and aren't necessarily intended to make as much money as possible. And oftentimes making money is not the goal. We want to maintain the ability to continue to do programming. But I love the energy that's in the Valley. I've been talking with some of the folks who at Laudable Productions who are doing things around the Bombyx Center, and Glenn Siegel and all the wonderful work he does with the Pioneer Valley Jazz Shares. There's so much creativity in the Valley, and one of the ways, Mark, that I think about the way we lead our lives off, and especially think of Hartford, really I-91 connects us into the Valley, and it also connects us down to New Haven. So, and if you take in New Haven and all of the good things that are going on at Yale and some of the other institutions in New Haven, and then you think about the Valley, there's so much activity that's going on here. But I do think that RealArtWays plays a unique role in that, and we really want more people to come see us and to be involved.
And if you're in Westfield, I mean, downtown Hartford is only 40 minutes away on 91. And now with CT Rail running, you can actually take the train from Springfield or Windsor Locks or Northampton to Hartford. So if there's plenty of public transportation, and we really, as you said, Will, we're an arts center from Greenfield all the way down to New Haven.
Yeah, or you could even like wrap Brattleboro into that, don't you think? Because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in Brattleboro that's pretty cool.
There is. They just had a Wagner festival up there
Yeah,
at the Latches.
at the Latches, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, years ago when I was up in Brattleboro, I was involved. I think I'd mentioned with community theater, but we did I directed a one-act play by the Polish playwright Slarmin Rotzek in room 301 at the Latches Hotel. And the play was set in a remote hotel in some like kind of like Eastern European bureaucracy. It's a comedy, and there was room for like 12 people to sit in the hotel room as part of the audience. So I have great fondness for the Latches Hotel.
I do too. I for a long time was the national press rep for the Capitol Steps, and they played at the Latches in Brattleboro, and they played at the Bellows Falls Opera House or the Lebanon Opera House. And going up and down the valley are these wonderful pockets of arts in so many towns, and I think that within at least within 45 minutes of Westfield, there are so many artistic opportunities. And oftentimes everybody says we need to go to the Berkshires, but we also can go to Hartford.
Yeah, and Hartford, in addition to RealArtWays, of course, the Wadsworth Atheneum that's here in Hartford has one of the most remarkable collections of any small museum in the United States, and well worth a visit. Our friends at the Regional Theater, the Hartford Stage, do wonderful things. Of course, the Bushnell has the touring Broadway shows that come through. Hartford Symphony is a really accomplished symphony orchestra. Our friends at Theater Works do some wonderful things. So there's a lot going on in Hartford. And Hartford has a level of diversity in terms of the folks who live here, Black, Latin, primarily Puerto Rican, but that's the Spanish-speaking community is becoming much more diverse over the last 15, 20 years, people from various countries. And there's a feeling that you get in Hartford that's very different than you get in some aspects of the Valley. And we haven't mentioned, Mark, and you probably know a little more about Holyoke, what's going on. It seems to me that there's a lot of activity going on in Holyoke, which is really exciting.
There is, as you said, without an alternative newspaper and limited arts resources, I mean, here at Artsbeat we can only cover so much, but there is so many things happening, and you really have to scout around a little bit, but there is arts in your backyard. And I have a question for you, Eric. You've worked with Theater Works, and you were on the board at Goodspeed Musicals and some of the more traditional and bigger companies. What's been your biggest eye-opener since you arrived at RealArtWays?
Oh, that's a great question, Mark. I think fundamentally it's about the dialogue that RealArtWays is in with the community. So I think one of the fair or unfair criticisms that's leveled against many arts organizations is that they're gatekeepers, and that there's a sense of imposing an aesthetic on whatever art they're presenting. And what's really interesting and seems really organically part of RealArtWays is, yes, there's a way in which RealArtWays service to the community is presenting things we think you should see. You should know about this music, this artist, this form of performance, this film, but it's a two-way street. And I think there's a real legitimate sense of listening to the community and saying, oh, okay, we're hearing you, and we want to give you too what you want to hear and see and experience, and how you want to enjoy being in community with each other. And I think that real legitimate dialogue is one of the things that's really exciting about a comprehensive or a more comprehensive contemporary art space like RealArtWays.
Well, if a community or a community development person here in Western Massachusetts is listening to this program today, and they want a RealArtWays type of organization in their community, how long did it take for RealArtWays to come together, and what would you tell them they need to do to make an organization like RealArtWays successful?
Well, I think that if you look at when RealArtWays started, 1975, there were resources available that we don't have in the same way now. I think our country has changed, but it was started in 1975 by a group of artists who were able to find very affordable, if not cheap, places to be in downtown Hartford. Real estate prices in general have gone up, and there was funding available. The National Endowment for the Arts funding at the federal level was growing. There was the National Endowment for the Arts. There was the CETA jobs program, which a lot of nonprofits ended up getting staff positions funded by the federal government. And the state arts agencies were growing. It was a time when there was a lot of arts activity going on. Hartford had 5 other major arts organizations besides RealArtWays that existed right in that downtown area, all of whom are out of business. So I think that part of what happened was that RealArtWays changed with the times, and we became more entrepreneurial. We became more focused on developing individual support, not just corporate support. And I think that it's a real challenge. I mean, I'll put it to you this way, Mark. I came here in 1990, so RealArtWays has already been around for 15 years. If I had come to Hartford in 1990 and RealArtWays didn't exist, and I said, I want to create something like RealArtWays, I wouldn't have been able to do it, because it would be, well, where's the money? Where are the resources? Where's that opportunity? And I think it's harder now than ever for an organization to get started. So I don't mean to sound pessimistic about it, but I think it's a real challenge. I think we could do a better job as a country in terms of welcoming the new and supporting the new. But I think right now it's a real challenge, and I think there's no substitute right now for being entrepreneurial in terms of how you think about it, and whatever that means to you in your particular community setting.
What's the number one need that RealArtWays has at the moment?
Money.
Money, of
Yeah,
course.
I mean, money, because money's flexible. You can do whatever with it. So, right now, people, we've done a good job of generating ticket sales. We have a movie theater, but there's a lot of people who are still reluctant to go out to the movies, with COVID. So that earned revenue from ticket sales is slowly growing, but it is slowly. So I think for us, that the resources, back in the 80s, RealArtWays from the federal government, the National Endowment for the Arts, got as much as a third to a half of its budget came through that way.
Yeah.
But the National Endowment for the Arts hasn't grown at all. It's shrunk, compared to what it was in the 80s. And there are other countries that give more money to the arts, I think, because they see it in their national interest. And I think it's in the United States' national interest to have more money devoted to the arts, because that question of who we are as a country is something that is kind of at the root of a lot of the political disputes and differences that we have as a country. And I think that the arts has something to say about that. Who are we? What does it mean to be an American? What does it mean to be in a democracy? And what does that mean in terms of the culture that we're producing? Canada feels this a lot more intensely, I think, because they're kind of a junior state compared to the United States, much smaller. So they could feel overwhelmed by the United States. As a consequence, the Canadian government funds a lot of arts and culture that's specifically Canadian. And I think the United States, if we looked at it and said, hey, where are we going as a country? What are these differences that we have? If we looked at it, I think we could see that an investment in a wide range of art making and art experiencing would be something that'd be a very healthy thing for our country to have more of.
Will K. Wilkins and Eric Ort from RealArtWays in Hartford, thanks for being here this morning.
Hey, Mark, thanks for having us. It's nice to see you.
Good to see you, too. RealArtWays.org. We're going to take a break to acknowledge our underwriters, and we'll be back with more Artsbeat, so don't go away.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield. Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Underwriting is brought to you by Boise Cascade Distribution, providing products and services needed for building material dealers, home improvement centers, and industrial customers. They offer everything from engineered wood and plywood to Drex decking and railing, James Hardie siding, and Advantech subfloor. Located at 33 Fowler Street Extension in Westfield and on the web at bc.com. They are committed to providing quality products, great service, convenience, and value.
Underwriting for Community Radio on WSKB is brought to you in part by Rockies. Over 30 convenient locations throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Florida. One of the nation's largest ACE dealers. Expertise and great product selection in paint, hardware, lawn and garden. That's Rockies, rock solid service since 1926. On the web at rockies.com.
This is Ken Stomsky from Ken's Den on WCPC 15 and 89.5 FM, Tuesdays, 8 to 10.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. If you missed a part of today's programming or you want to catch it again, share it with friends, you can find it archived at WSKB Community Radio's YouTube page. Our next guest is somebody who's quite familiar to our Artsbeat audience. Taneisha Duggan has been on the program many times before as one of the creatives at TheaterWorks in Hartford, where she's, in my mind, best known for producing last season's Walden on the shores of the Connecticut River, which was a mind-boggling play, let alone production. But she's done other great work there and at Heartbeat Ensemble and has moved on to bigger and better things. But she returns to our area to direct Cadillac Crew, which is the fall production at Wham Theater running in Lenox, Massachusetts, October 13th through the 29th. And Wham will be performing at Shakespeare and Company's Tina Packer Playhouse. And it will be, part of it will be streamed for those that can't make it out to the Berkshires. But Taneisha, it is so good to see you.
You too.
So when we last chatted, we were coming out of the pandemic, and Walden was a big smash. And prior to that, Russian Troll Farm that you worked on, and then you decided to move on to bigger things. So I know that you're involved in a production company in New York, and now you're doing something for Wham Theater, which is really one of the great theater companies in Western Massachusetts. What have you been up to?
I've been busy. It's true. I mean, I'll say I took a bit of a sabbatical before moving to my new position at Octopus Theatricals. I just wanted a sort of a moment to sort of think about this industry. You know, we had been running so hard at TheaterWorks and making amazing things and working with amazing artists and collaborators. And I think I was at an inflection point personally where I just wanted to sort of understand, like, is theater the thing? And it is my calling. It is my story. It is my song. And I'm really thrilled to now be with Mara Isaacs at Octopus Theatricals as an associate producer there, working on their portfolio of what we consider nonprofit work, which is, you know, we have Hadestown. That's the big sort of crown jewel of the company. But my work really is around projects like Puppet Cycle, Small World Stories, which is a puppet play on a bicycle made by this incredible company called Phantom Limb. Working on projects like Utopian Hotline, made by the amazing, innovative Theater Me Too, and putting that work. We're actually going to be down in Arizona at Arizona State University. And then flirting with my friends up here, wanting to try to get work up here, working with my friends at UConn, working with my friends at TheaterWorks, but really trying to get the same kind of amazing, intimate, community-driven, but spectacular theater projects into our country. And so that's what I've been doing sort of on the producing level. And then I'm excited to be back in the region sort of directing, which is something I've always loved to do, that I sort of interjected it here and there as I could at TheaterWorks. But I'm doing a little bit more freelancing right now. And I'm really excited to do Tori Sampson's Cadillac Crew at Wham. There's no more perfect time for this moment to sort of think about 4 women engaged in the struggle of our time to figure out how to make the world better, how to live as women, progressive women, trying to move society in a direction. It's really, really exciting to be back in the Berkshires.
Well, it's great to have you back home here. I'm looking forward to Cadillac Crew. And I know that, how did you connect with Wham Theater?
So actually, I have a couple of other friends who have worked for Wham before, and Kristen Van Gehoven came in contact with me and said, "I've got this project. We've got some mutual friends. We'd love to have you." And I read the play and was gobsmacked. Tori Sampson really is remarkable talent. I hope more and more and more of her plays get produced. She's, of course, moved to television and all of that jazz. So she may be harder to get back into the theater game. But this is a special play.
And you've got a great cast that you're working with. You can tell me a little bit more about them, but I know, for example, Kate Alston has been on this program before, and Maconia Chester just did an Iliad at Shakespeare and Company. That was a dynamic performance. So who are these 4 women, and what is the play about?
Yeah, so we follow 4 women, as you said, Abby, Dee, Sarah, and Rachel. Rachel is the head of the Virginia Office for Civil Rights. And they are sort of spinning off a little bit and wanting to focus a little more on women's rights in particular, getting women the right to vote at that point. Also, they're looking at sexual violence. We're talking about the ability for one to make a choice around her body when it comes to parenthood and raising a family. And so each of these women sort of, in some ways, represent an archetype of a kind of woman. We've got the Black mother, played by the inimitable Maconia Chester. We have Abby, played by Kate Alston, who you spoke about, who is sort of the spunky upstart who's imagining a life where she has to make no compromises. Rachel, who is the leader of the pack, the one who is on her way to becoming the next great sort of speaker within the movement. And then we have Sarah, another woman in the office who is bringing a new perspective into the office, is really gunning towards women's rights and feminist rights. And they come together, like many of us women, right? We've got lots of friends from lots of different backgrounds, but we come together to kiki and to, try to make a difference where we can.
Okay, well, I got it. First of all, you're directing this production indoors, which must be a nice change from being out on the river, right?
I mean, you know what? You're making me think of my actors who, in the height of July, heat and the bugs and the mosquitoes as the sun went down. You're right. It is a luxury to have moved indoors. And it's got its own quirks and foibles as well, being inside. But I'm excited to sort of remember traditional theater and really embrace this idea of us all coming together in a singular space for a singular experience.
And of course, in your final year at TheaterWorks, you, over the course of less than a calendar year, you did 2 completely different productions. I mean, Russian Troll Farm was basically an internet conversation and a social media conversation come to life. And then you have Walden, which is a play about social consciousness and in the environment, slap dab in the middle of the Connecticut River in the middle of the summer. Two completely different polarities and stuff like that. I did learn recently that Russian Troll Farm has a future. In fact, that Elizabeth Williamson, who was at Hartford Stage and has now at the Jiva Theater in Rochester, is producing that, and Darko Tresnik is directing it. So that play has a fascinating future.
Yes, I'm so excited. First, I'm so excited for Elizabeth and for what she's doing up at Jiva. In fact, her first directorial project at Jiva opened, I think, last week with her adaptation of Jane Eyre. I am so excited that Troll Farm is going to get a loving hand produced by Elizabeth with Darko as director. I mean, the project is written to be this visual, fantasia. And so I can't think of a better director for a work like that than Darko. But you talked about those two sort of pieces of ours, Russian Troll Farm and Walden, and they were bookends, really. And they were bookends that really sort of capture that time. Yes, that first piece was unabashedly internet-based because we were still, we weren't in lockdown at that point, but we weren't as open, to the public at that point. And, TheaterWorks is a small theater. And so the way to bring a project to a large amount of people was to really embrace the internet aspect of it all. And Russian Troll Farm, I mean, it is an internet play. It is about, Russians coming into our internet dialogue and really changing and exploiting our tribalism and our fears. And so that was just perfect timing for what was needed for safety and I think what was needed in terms of storytelling. And then Walden was as we were beginning to emerge. And I'm forever grateful for Rob and everybody there for having the vision and the willingness to give vision to the rest of the folks in our region who are still really terrified, who did not know what to do next. And our answer to that was embrace the outdoors, that we can be safe outdoors, we can be distant outdoors, there's no better air filtration than what the creator has given us, and so for me, my work is as much about embracing the moment and finding ways to be really fertile in the moment and create something that is innovative and specific.
When you took on the project of Walden, did you have any idea that it would tax you in ways you never dreamed possible, that you were producing a play at the mercy of the elements because you had an outdoor performance space? It could rain, it could be humid, you had the trains rolling back, and all. Did you ever realize that you'd be thrust into that?
I think, the best laid plans, or the other phrase they say, you make plans, God laughs. The team at TheaterWorks is remarkable. And, there were many conversations ahead of getting into rehearsal, but no, we were not fully prepared for what that was. There are theater companies that do outdoor theater year round, we were building infrastructure from scratch. I wasn't joking when I said it, there was a flood, there was torrential rains, leading up to us going into first rehearsals, and the entire bank flooded, and we had already had equipment, in that space, and we lost equipment. It was not easy. It was not easy, but it was transformative.
Well, Taneisha, we're going to take a fast break here to acknowledge the underwriters that make Artsbeat possible. We'll come back and talk more with Taneisha Duggan, who is directing Cadillac Crew at Wham Theater, and that's up and coming October 13th through the 29th. It'll be performed at Shakespeare & Company's Tina Packer Playhouse. And for details, whamtheater.com. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldstate.bncollege.com.
Underwriting support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for the Greater Westfield communities. Informing, educating, advocating, the Chamber provides opportunities for members to make meaningful connections on local, regional, and state levels. For more information on the Chamber's many events, workshops, and programs, as well as the benefits of membership, visit westfieldbiz.org. The Chamber focuses on the most important economy, yours.
Hi, this is Harry Rock, host of Rock on Westfield every fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Tune in for my view of this place I call home.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB. Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. We're chatting with Taneisha Duggan, who is directing Cadillac Crew at Wham Theater in Lenox. That's going to be running this month. You got a great group of people working at Wham, and I got to do a shout out to the designer, Juliana von Hobrick, whose design work for Chester Theater at Wham is just fabulous. So that's another reason to go up and see Cadillac Crew. Taneisha, you've done so much work as a producer and a director and a thinker. Your schedule, and you've evolved into so many different things. What happens for you after Cadillac Crew?
It's a good question. You said my schedule, and I can feel my family like, oh my God, please let the schedule release and relax a little bit. So after Cadillac Crew, I continue to direct. I teach at Brooklyn College. And so I'll be teaching my students there. I will, of course, be at my job at Octopus, moving projects around the country and around the world. And I am going to be back actually in the region directing at Connecticut Repertory Theater, a production of Roe by Lisa Loomer. In the spring. So I'm slowing down.
Is that the same Row that Wham did last year as a stream production?
That is correct. It is.
Wow,
the same
that is a powerhouse of theater.
It is, and Lisa has actually, rewritten the epilogue post Dobbs, and so it is a different ending, obviously, than it was a year ago. So yeah, excited to sort of. I'm on this beat in this moment of directing and producing works that really is challenging audiences and delighting audiences and, bringing joy and humor, but also really encouraging us to think. You've had enough conversations with me, and I think it's gotten more dire since the more and more we talk. But we're at it's wild times out here in our world and in our country. And I have always believed that the art is a place to be a haven and also a place for us to get ready.
Well, and one of the things, we've known each other for so long now working in theater, and the world has changed so much with the pandemic and everything else that goes along with it. But I don't know about you, but for me, I found the arts not only a refuge from what's going on out there, but an opportunity to speak and have dialogue without being shut off and shut down. And so I am glad to be immersed in the arts.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If there's anything we can be more of now, it's in contact and in engagement with each other. I think the pandemic did a number on us, but I also think the way in which we're positioned to each other and not the way we talk to each other. I think the beauty of the arts is that we're actually in a space together, whether it's digital or in person, where we have to contend with each other. And there's just more grace there. There's just more empathy there. And I think it's hard sometimes because often the stories we get told from mass media is this idea that we are different and apart and separate. And then we find when we're in the room together making theater, when in the room together making culture, experiencing culture, that we're more alike than we are different. And that the ways in which we're different are portals and opportunities for us to learn more about ourselves, re-engage in our relationships. Yeah, I mean, there's no thing I'd rather do than make this work.
You know,
And I'm excited to do it with you because you allow these conversations to happen.
Well, I've had this experience in the last year working with some musicians and doing music. And of course, you don't have to speak a certain language to understand music, and it's a part of every culture. It's a part of every class. It is a part of every gender. And you can get 2 or 3 people together to listen to a piece of music, and it brings people together. It doesn't separate them. And I believe that theater does the same thing. And when it does separate people, it's not separating them to be antagonistic towards each other, but it's separating them in the fact that they respect other people's points of view. And that's what theater's all about, is expressing and responding to points of view. And I wish the rest of our society could be that way.
Listen, one play, one project, one concert at a time. You're making me think of a project we have in our portfolio at Octopus called In the Same Tongue. And it features Diane McIntyre, the poetry of Ntozake Shange, Deirdre Murray's live compositions, and Oludara's and a composition from Oludara. And the work is so magnificent because it's particularly doing this thing between dance and music in which they're speaking to one another. They're doing exactly what you're saying. We may not always have the same language. We may not always have the perspective, but we can get in there and engage and grow and produce something more than what was there before. And yeah, that's why we do it. That's why we do it.
How much time do you have to pull Cadillac Crew from the initial creative process to getting it up on the stage?
So Wham, is really paying attention to what it means to be in this new moment. And they're very much trying to give more space. So we started conversations, sort of open creative conversations back in May with the creative team. We brought the actors into a retreat in August. We started rehearsals last week, so middle of September, and then we've got a 5-week process before we open to the public. So it's a really long, to American standards process, and I think we're learning a lot about what that means. In some ways, it's very much like Walden in the sense that like we've got a dream of how we want things to work and how we want things to be, and we're sort of attempting it and iterating inside of it. And I think, kudos to them for even trying it. So often the economics of it makes it impossible to do, but that they were willing to figure out a way is really exciting. And I think it's going to yield a better product in the long run. Maybe not visible from the audience perspective, because I think theater makers have always been just, we're going to get it done come hell or high water. But I think it'll be a better product for everybody because of, we're not doing 10 out of 12s, we're really just, taking all of those ideas we talked about in the pandemic time and the before time when we had the time and putting it into practice.
One of the things I want to point out to our audience is that Wham is kind of unique as a theater company in the fact that they take a percentage of their box office receipts and they turn it around and donate it to not-for-profit organizations that serve women and children. Many, or I would say most of the organizations are within our region and our area. Some are national and international, but it's one of the few theater models in this country that has that commitment to return to the community. So I would assume for you, Taneisha, who's been in many theaters, there's a different vibe at Wham than there is in other places.
I have to say I've been lucky enough that my career in the arts has been in nonprofit institutions that really view themselves as service organizations. From, my time as director of audience engagement at Heartbeat to my time as artistic producer at TheaterWorks, to directing now at Wham. And even, being in a commercial producing office like Octopus, who is firmly rooted in anti-racist practice and a curation process that is thinking outside of commerce, right? I've been lucky that like all of my artistic work has lived there. So I think to some people, Wham is different. But for me, it feels just like home, because they get why this work exists. They get why we do it.
Yeah. So what's on the docket? When we'll give out the dates and everything for Wham again, but when are you coming back to do the Connecticut Repertory production?
Good question. So that I believe that we go into rehearsals in January. I want to say end of like middle of February is when we'll be doing that. But I'll definitely keep you posted on
Yeah,
when that
definitely,
goes
because
up.
I want to do a story about that. And are you working at Connecticut Rep with their students, or is this a combination of students and pros?
Yeah, it's a combination. It's one of the reps productions in their season. It's a combination of students and professionals. I'm back working with my dear friend Pat McCorkle, who we used to work with at TheaterWorks, which is really exciting. Yeah, we'll be working with local talent in addition to the student talent, in addition to people that we bring in from wherever. So it'll be a real uh in the vein of Public Works, that project they do down at the Public. It has a little bit of that vibe. It's got MFA and BFA students and local actors and professional actors, and it'll be a
And I have,
really,
yeah,
go for
I
it.
have a feeling that if you saw Row at Wham, it was a wonderful stream production. I could not believe how well it worked on camera and everything. But talk about what's gone on in the last year and how relevant Row will be when it shows up next year, because women's reproductive rights and abortion have been the number one news story for so long in the last couple of months. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. But in the meantime, I hope that everybody gets to see Taneisha's production, a Cadillac Crew, which will be October 13th through 29th, being performed at Shakespeare and Company's Tina Packer Playhouse in Lenox and produced by Wham Theater Company. Tickets are at a premium for that, so you'll want to get those in advance at whamtheater.com. Taneisha Duggan, thanks so much for being here. I missed having you on the program over the last couple of months, and I am so glad that you're back here in the area directing.
I am too, and it's so good to hear your voice and to see you through the interwebs. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, take care. And this wraps up another edition of Artsbeat. Peter Coles has been our chief engineer. We're going to leave you with a little piece of music from the Drowsy Chaperone called As We Stumble Along. See you next week with another Artsbeat.
On life's funny journey, as we stumble along into the blue, we look here and we look there, seeking answers anywhere, never sure of where to turn or what to do. Still we bumble our way through life's crazy labyrinth, barely knowing left from right, nor right from wrong. And the best that we can do is hope a bluebird will sing his song as we stumble along. It's a dismal little world in which we live. It can bore you till you've nothing left to give. 7 overrated wonders, 7 underwhelming seas, 6 excruciating continents, Antarctica, oh please. Still, you mustn't let it lick you. This planet, oh so bland. Keep your eyeball on the highball in your hand. As we stumble along, cross life's crowded dance floors, as we push and we shove, we live and we learn. And when we finally leave the bar and we see that morning star, we pull our bootstraps up and homeward turn.